Hey guys, welcome back. In this lecture, we'll be talking about one most important Python library called Pandas. So Pandas is quite a game changer when it comes to analyzing data with Python, and it is one of the most preferred and widely used tool in data analysis and also playing with data that are stored in CSV file, text file, JSON file and different type of APIs and downloadable file. So this is one of the most important library which is currently used to perform operations over data. The major purpose of pandas is to be used for data manipulation, analysis and cleaning. So it is well suited for different kind of data in which we require some type of manipulation or maybe changing of data or maybe cleaning and removing unrequired data or maybe performing analysis. Like if I talk about basic example, I usually do web scraping. That means I take content from different websites, store them in a CSV or JSON file and then use pandas to perform different experiment with them to get my desired result. So that's how it is used. It is suitable for data that are stored in either tabular form or some ordered or unordered form or in some form of metrics or maybe some unlabeled data. So you should know to store data in some type of form and you should know that how the data is stored or how the data is structured, and then you can use pandas to perform different operation. Now before talking about anything else with pandas or before performing anything, I would request you to visit the official website of pandas library, and it would be really helpful for you to understand a bit about its history and how you can work along with it. Don't worry, we are going to perform everything. I just want to make you a habit to understand different libraries because there are over 170,000 libraries and you might need to use different libraries at different point of time, maybe in future with some project. So it's a good habit to judge a library and understand. The second thing I would request you to do is visit PyPy and search about pandas and just read out its description. That would be really helpful for you, and also you will be understanding a lot more thing about pandas. This is the first thing that I do with any library and I recommend this as a good habit. So just take a pause, visit PyPy and search about pandas, and also visit the official website of pandas so you will get a basic info. Now before installing pandas, I just want to talk about one small thing, that pandas is a high level library. That means there are certain other libraries that are required to run pandas. So the library that is required is NumPy. And what is NumPy? So NumPy stands for Numerical Python. So it is a library consists of multi-dimensional arrays. You can consider it as multi-dimensional list. So when we play with metrics or when we play with different type of processing formats which use inputs of multi-dimensional array, at that point of time we use NumPy. It is also one of the most important scientific library. If you have used OpenCV, NumPy would have already been installed in your system, and if you are going to use pandas, NumPy will automatically get installed in your system. Here the point was to make you understand about pandas, that it is a high level library and it requires some other libraries to work perfectly. So without any delay, let's create a new folder called PyPandas and let me open my command prompt. So first I need to install pandas. You can do that in any folder. Let me install my pandas. All you have to do is pip install pandas. Once that is done, just try to verify that. All you have to do is enter your Python shell and then import pandas. So I haven't got any error while importing pandas. That means my library is installed. There are chances that on some Windows system you might get error with pandas or NumPy. So for that you have to do one simple step. Remember, this step is only for someone who is getting error while installing any library. So all you have to do is just visit Google and search about precompiled Python libraries. And here you will get information about precompiled libraries. Just visit the first one. Let me search for pandas here. Here you go. So now you have an executable file. Check your Python version since this is for 3.7 version and these two are the version for 32-bit and 64-bit. Let me download this one. Remember, you have to install both NumPy as well as Pandas. The first will be the NumPy and the second will be Pandas. And remember, I have downloaded this in my PyPandas. So I have to be inside my PyPandas file. All you have to do is write pip install and then in quotes give the file name. That's all. If you press enter, your Pandas will be installed. But I have already installed, so I'm not going to do this process. That's all for this lecture. We have talked about Pandas, we have installed Pandas, and by now we also understood how to install pre-compiled libraries whenever we are going to get error. So you are good to go with different methods. That's all for this lecture. In the next lecture, I will be talking about IPython as well as Jupyter Notebook. So these two are really important. So see you in the next one. Welcome back. In this lecture, we'll be talking about IPandas, and in the next lecture, we'll be talking about Jupyter Notebook. So what are these two? So firstly, I want to talk about whenever we are going to work with Pandas, so we will be dealing with datas. So we are not going to work with any editor. So I have opened Atom at the back just for some comparison. But at this point of time, IPandas mean it is just exactly same like interactive shell, but it would be easy for us to determine different type of data. So that said, what are we going to do with Pandas? So basically we take some data in the form of list, dictionary, or maybe a text file, maybe a CSV file, maybe a Excel file, or maybe a JSON file, use our Python library, and then we use a different data structure which we call as data frames. You would understand everything once we start doing. All the operation that we are going to perform with the help of Pandas command will be performed over data frames. Maybe if I talk about slicing, indexing, merging, joining, concatenation, or maybe dealing with columns and rows, or maybe other form of data manipulation, everything would be performed over our data frames. So without any delay, let us get started. So first I need to install my IPython. All you have to do is just pip install IPython. And don't forget to check its description over PyPy. While it is getting downloaded, let us discuss few small things. While we use interactive shell, the main reason is to test our commands. And whenever we test our commands, we majorly focus on interactive shell because we get our result instantly, or if there is any error, we get that result instantly. Whenever we want to save our code or whenever we want to experiment with it, we usually use any editor. You can be using Atom, you can be using PyCharm. So basically whenever you are testing, whenever you are practicing, you might be using one of the interactive shell. But whenever you are writing some serious code that you want to save, you might be using editor. And the solution of both these is our Jupyter Notebook that we will be discussing in the next lecture. But now let us focus on IPython. To get into Python shell, we usually write Python. To get into IPython shell, we just write IPython. That's done, you are inside your Python shell. One important thing is you might be seeing an indication of this line number, which you don't see with the direct Python shell. Now let me import my Pandas. Pandas is imported. Now let me create a data frame. So for that I would be taking a variable as df1. And I need to call my Pandas, and inside that I would be using data frame, and inside that we need to pass either a list, dictionary, or any file. So I would be passing a basic list. You can understand it as a way of a table in which the first field is for date, the second field is for visitor, and the third field is for bounce rate. And remember, I am going to pass this with the help of a list. So I am going to pass a list. Inside that I would be passing these items. So the first I need to pass as days. So let me talk about maybe 5 days. Then I need to pass number of visitor. I would be calling it as 5000, and then my bounce rate. So that is 20. Now if I need to pass one more row, I have to repeat the same step. Maybe this time I'm taking data for 10 days. And the number of visitors are 9800, and then the bounce rate. So once your data is entered, all you have to do is press enter. Now we have stored our data inside our data frame 1, that is our variable df1. Let me check that out. Now you can see in the output I am getting a matrix. You can see a row or column field. So this is my column and this is my row. So my column 0 has number of days and my column 1 has number of visitors, and then my column 2, that is my bounce rate. And these are my indexes, that is my rows. So here you can see these are just exactly in the line. 5, 5000, 20. So 5, 5020, and then 10, 9823. 10, 9823. So these are some type of sequence. Don't worry, we are going to deal with lot more data. This was a basic sample. Now I can also rename these. So instead of 0, 1 and 2, I can actually rename them as number of days, visitors and bounce rate. Let me try that. So after your first argument, that is your complete list, use a comma, and then you have to pass a parameter as column, then again a list, and then the 3 item name. Let me add these 3 items. I would call it as days, and the second item is visitors, and the third item is bounce rate. I would call it as BR in the short form. This looks fine. Let me enter, and let me print my data frame. Here you can see now I have changed the heading name, that is instead of 012 I now have days, visitors and bounce rate. I can also change the name of indexes, that is our rows. So instead of column you have to use a index name. Just add a new parameter and pass the argument. Remember, usually when we deal with data, there are less number of columns, but there are more number of rows. Like currently we have only 2 rows, but what if I am taking data of 100 of different websites, or maybe I am taking data of 365 days. So each day will have a different row, and then the column would be same. That is my day, that is my visitor and bounce rate. But the row will be 365. So it is really hard to give index to each row. That is why we by default take 0, 1, 2, 3. But it is easy to take column name because they are easily countable and can be named. Let me enter with my index and let me print this one. You can see now we have FNS instead of my 0 and 1, and now we have different column name. Remember data frame as table. If I take an example of my Excel file, that is exact example of my data frame. Instead of playing with my Excel file, now I am taking all the data from my Excel file inside my Python, that is my IPython, and then play with it. The main reason is because you can be dealing with tons of data. It is just 2 data points at this point of time. But when we deal with data that can be of 365 days or maybe some 1000 day data, or maybe I am taking data of different listing of our e-commerce website or maybe a real estate website. At that point of time, you cannot deal with Excel sheet. We will be dealing with pandas. Also, you might be taking data from APIs. So we can directly deal with data of APIs in the form of JSON with the help of pandas. We'll be doing everything in Jupyter Notebook. At this point of time, this is just to make you comfortable with data frame. Let me take one more data frame in the form of dictionary and pass the same data in the simpler manner. Let me scroll it up and take a data frame as df2. Get inside my pandas, then data frame, and here inside that I need to pass the data, either my list or dictionary. Let me take my dictionary, and with that dictionary I need to pass key and value pair. So each key would act as column and all the values of that key would act as that value of the column. Let me take the example. So the first key I need to take is days, and here with the value I am passing a list, and I would be passing as 5 and 10 because that's the 2 value I am taking for days. Now the second item that I am passing in the dictionary is my visitors, that is my second key, and then I need to pass a list in which I would be giving a 5000 and 9800. The third I need to pass is BR, and then provide a list as 20 and 23. Things looks fine to me. Let me press enter, print this data frame. You can see I got my exact result. This is because I am passing directly my dictionary with the help of key and value pair. This one is the easiest one because you have to pass all the data in the one shot. In this one, whenever you need to add a new row, all you have to do is pass the row straightly. That means you just add a comma and pass a new list. In this one, if you need to add more data, You have to add a value inside this, then this, then this, then you are going to get that. Just get familiar with that. At the end of the day, we have to play with files. I hope by now you are comfortable with data frames and you understand this matrix, column and row. Let us do a small thing. Let me use type over my data frame. Here you can see I got a result as data frame, which is okay. Now remember, at the starting I said that all the operation we need to perform would be done over our data frames. Suppose we need to check maximum number of visitors. So all you have to do is use your data frame and then pass the header value and then your max method. Here you can see I got 9800. At currently we have only 2 rows, but suppose if it was a data of 1 year, so we might need to search from 365 days. Let me check out a mean of these. So here I got as 7400. Let me check out different type of methods and functions that are available. So all you have to do is use dir and then pass the data frame. Here you can see these are different type of function methods that are available over our data frame. I hope by now you understand about data frames. In the next lecture, we'll be talking about Jupyter Notebook, which is something really important. I hope this lecture was helpful. See you in the next one. Now let us talk about Jupyter Notebook. So I've already talked about editor as well as interactive shell. So Jupyter Notebook is actually a hybrid tool in which we can do both the things simultaneously. That means we can check our code, also we can save that code inside a file. So remember, we have to install that locally and then we can use that on our local host. So this is a simple tool which works on browser and it is really handy to deal data on browser instead of our command line shell. So let us install our Jupyter Notebook. So install Jupyter Notebook with the help of pip install and then Jupyter. Once that is installed, make sure you go inside your desired folder. I would be working inside PyPandas because we can save files of Jupyter Notebook. So I would be recommending you to create a new folder and work inside that. So I would be working inside my PyPandas, and to open your Jupyter Notebook, all you have to do is call a command Jupyter and then Notebook. Here you can see it would be working on your default browser. At currently my local host is working on my default browser, that is Internet Explorer or Edge. Here you can see all my activities. You can also see in my CMD, that is my command prompt. So the reason for a specific folder is you can also see the different files that are available inside my folder. And if I want to create a new file, that is my Jupyter Notebook file, all I have to do is click on new and my Python version. Just click on that and here you will get your interactive shell that you can save. So this is our interactive shell, and inside this interactive shell, if I want to print something, maybe print 123. Here single enter means new line in that shell and control plus enter means to execute that particular shell. So this was my shell first. These were the 3 lines, and when I use single enter, I was creating a new line inside that shell. When I press control plus enter, then I executed that line. Now to create a new shell, you have to use alt plus enter. And I can execute more codes inside this particular line, maybe print 4 or maybe import my pandas here. Remember, to create a new line, it's enter. To execute that, it's control plus enter. Or you can just directly create a new shell, it would be executed. Here you can see how it's working. So this is the basic example of Jupyter shell. We'll be working with that in the next lecture. Let me save this file, but before saving, let me open my PyPandas folder. Here you can see I have a file called ipynb, that is my IPython notebook, and it is currently untitled. So let me save this one with a title. Here you can see I got my script one as name and it is automatically saved, and whenever I want to edit this script, I can do that with my interactive shell as well as my editor. So in the next lecture, let us use our Python, use different type of files and try to play with our data. So see you in the next one. Welcome back. In this lecture, let us talk more about Jupyter Notebook. So in the previous lecture, we performed some basic stuff. In this lecture, let us know more about its keyword and also how to open a file inside a Jupyter Notebook. So let me open my Jupyter Notebook. Here it is up and running. Here you can see I have few files, that is some of my JSON, some of my CSV and other TXT files. Also here is my previous IPython notebook which we were editing in the previous lecture. These were the command that was auto-saved. Let me delete this one. All you have to do is select the cell and then press DD. Now it's a fresh Jupyter notebook. Also if you want to rename them, just click here and give your desired name. And the most important thing is Jupyter notebook are auto-saved. So if you are doing any changes, they would be saved automatically at a certain period of time. And if you want to launch a new notebook, all you have to do is click on new and then select the language. If you are also running PHP or maybe some other languages, you will get their option also. And at this point of time, I am running this script one IPython notebook. Let me get back here. And one most important thing is different type of keystrokes. So if I click on help, here you can see keyboard shortcuts, and if you click here, you will see different type of shortcuts that you can also customize according to you, but these are some really important. So if you are someone who is going into data analysis field for your future, Jupyter Notebook is one of the best choice. Also these are few really important things that you need to remember. So I hope you will give a look to it. Now let us do some basic thing. Let me import my pandas. And also let me try to take CSV and read the file. So all I have to do is just import pandas. Once pandas is imported, you have to create a data frame. Now here remember I am trying to read a CSV. So I would be using a method called read_CSV. In the previous videos, we were directly using a dictionary or a list. In this lecture, we are trying to read a CSV file that is stored in the same folder, which is our PyPandas folder. So I have to take care of that. So if I am reading any particular file, I have to take care about that. Read CSV is the method for text file or CSV file. Now here I need to give the location of my file. Since they both are in the same folder, all I have to give is file name. Otherwise I have to define C drive or D drive or the required folder. So here they both are in the same folder, I just need to pass my file name. Press Alt plus Enter to execute this line. Here now you can see I am able to get my result. So I am just basically reading CSV file at this point of time. We will be reading all the different type of formats in the next lecture. At this point of time you have to see this is a tabular form, and let me open my CSV file. So this is the main file and we are reading it in our Jupyter notebook. I hope now you are able to understand that. Let me open my Excel file. So let me create a new shell, that is Alt plus Enter. Create my data frame 2. Use my pandas and then read Excel. And then I need to pass my file name. Let me execute this one with the help of Control and Enter. And you can see I got an error. Now you need to think that why we are going to get this error. Let me read this one. So here we have an error called module name XLRD not found. So basically recently pandas got updated and we need to install this particular dependency to run our Excel file also. Not a big issue. All you have to do is use pip install and then give the dependency name. So let me do that. Also before doing that, let me talk about my Excel sheet because now we are going to work on it. What I have done is I have taken a report of my website, a 10-day report in which I am taking 6 fields, that is my date, then number of visitors, bounce rate, most popular country, number of ad clicks and then day. So this is the date, that is date first, number of visitors that were 1500, bounce rate was 20, most popular country was USA, number of ad clicks were 20, and the day was Tuesday. Same follows with all the data. So this is a basic data which I have taken, and the same data lies in different format. So you can talk about JSON, you can talk about TXT file, you can talk about CSV file. The same data is stored in different formats. I hope you understand these data, and basically this row is index number, that is by default, and this is my header. I hope till now we are fine. Let me install this dependency and run my Excel file. You can also check the background, and you can see we have a connection error at this point of time because we have disturbed our Jupyter notebook. It's done. Let me run my Jupyter notebook again. And this works fine. Let me close the old tabs and open my script one. Now let me execute this one. All you have to do is Ctrl+Enter. Remember, you might get an error because of the pandas. So all you have to do is either you need to execute import pandas again if you are getting an error. Okay, let me execute this one, and then yeah, this works fine for me. Now I am also able to read my Excel file. So that's all for this lecture. In the next lecture, let us play with all the different type of formats, and you will also learn more things regarding JSON or reading from direct API. We will be doing that in the next lecture. For this lecture, my main motive was to make you understand how to read a file and to make you more comfortable with Jupyter Notebook. So if you want to know more about different type of keywords, all you have to do is just move to help and use keyboard shortcuts. That would be great help for you to understand Jupyter Notebook. So that's all for this lecture. See you in the next one. Welcome back. Now in this lecture, let us talk about CSV file, JSON file, XLS file, TXT file, and also what is comma separated file or maybe semicolon separated file. So there are different type of files that we need to play. And remember, I'm just taking 10 days of data. Usually if someone try to audit, they might take a 365 days of data, or maybe you are trying to work on a country population file that can be a big data. So think from a perspective of a website owner, because I usually got a lot of questions that we can perform everything on Excel. Still, why we are using pandas? Think from the perspective of a website owner. So when we do some clicks on a website and they automatically calculate all the different type of thing, how do you think that happen? Because maybe a pandas script or maybe some different type of script is already running in the background. So that is done automatically. There is no real human that is doing calculation on an Excel sheet. They have done everything automatic in their web framework, or maybe they have created an API, send a request to pandas, do some calculation and take response. So that's the main reason that we are learning this. So once you are comfortable, you know what you are going to do. You try and test it on Jupyter Notebook, save that code and create script.1, and then you can upload it on server. So that can be done. Now hope that gave you enough motivation, and let us get back to our Jupyter Notebook and create a new cell and just open my JSON file. Let me create data frame 3, pandas, and then read JSON method and then the file name. Same follows with my JSON file. But here you can see I'm getting a different result from what I was expecting from my CSV and Excel file. Here you can see the sequence of column is not there. Since we have a defined and labeled column, there is not a big issue. But why this is happening? Because JSON is just like a dictionary. And if you remember, dictionary don't have sequence or indexes. So they are known with their key. So this is their key and this is their value. Let me open a JSON file. So this is how a JSON file looks. You can see this is a dictionary in which these are keys and these are value, and this is another dictionary and they are stored in a type of list. So there is an open list and then all the elements are dictionary. Here you will see 10 different dictionaries with all the data. And as you know, there is no sequence for a dictionary. So we are getting the result as same. The other thing that I want to talk about is how do my file knows, that is how do my Jupyter Notebook result note that this was the header, because I have just given the result. I have given just 11 fields. How do they know that this was my header and these are all my fields? So we have a parameter here which is called header and which is by default true. That means they will consider first line as header. And if I try to make header as none, they would definitely include that in the value pair. Let me execute this one. You can see our result now. So what actually happened is I just did header as none. Now they are considering them as the other value. So now we have 10 different values, which was different. But if I try to remove this header, which is by default as true, and I need to execute both the files, you can see we are back with the result. And you can play with Jupyter upside down. So whenever you want to edit any line, you just need to jump on that line. I hope now you understand about header field also. Excel and CSV file follows the same rule, but JSON file we have key and value pair, so they can directly differentiate. Let me delete this cell and let me work more with my Excel file. So all you have to do is dd. Now I have a thought. What if I try to remove this index and try to use date as index? Since I know this is not useful for me, this 0, 1, 2, all I need is date and then the result. So we can do that. We can change this date into our index, that is into our row field. So to perform that, we just need to do a simple task, create a data frame and then use a method as setIndex and then pass the value. Here my value will be date since I want my date to be treated as index. Now check out the output. Here you can see it's changed now. You can compare both the result. Now we have date as our index and we are only dealing with 5 major columns. 6th is our date, but it is treated as index. We don't have this 0, 1, 2, 3. We have our index as 1, 2, 3. You can also pass different type of values. So if I try to make day as index, it worked fine. Now my date is included in our column and this day is working as index. So you can treat them accordingly. Now the next thing I want to talk about is you can also check their shape. So if you remember, while doing math, we used to do matrix shape. We can also do shape of our table. So let me do that. You can see it's currently 10 by 6. That means 10 rows and 6 columns. But if I try to print my df2, this is printing the default table because we are not saving this, we are just printing that. So if I want to save this result, all I have to do is either save in a new variable, that is my new data frame, or just overwrite my previous variable. Now if I try to print df2, you can see this is the permanent change. Earlier I was not doing the permanent change. I was just trying to change these things, test them out, print them. But I was not storing them in my variable. I hope till now things are looking fine. This might be confusing, but with practice you can easily excel them. Also I am attaching all these files in the resource section so you can play with them. Let me create a new cell and then play with my txt files. Remember, whenever we are going to read any txt file, we need to use CSV. And CSV is comma separated values. Before reading both the text files, look at them. Here I am taking comma separated file. You can see all the values are separated with the help of comma. And the second txt file that I am taking is separated with the help of semicolon. So there is a parameter called separate and by default it is comma. So if I try to run this file, this would run perfectly. So let me use my traffic.commas. You can see I was able to get my result for my data frame 4. Because here we have a parameter called sep and have a value by default as comma. So they just separated all the commas and give us the result. But if I try to run this semicolon file, we would get an error. Let me do that. You can see what I'm getting an index and then one row. This is the complete row and all the results in a complete row. So there are 10 different rows and one column. So they are recognizing this as a complete column. So I need to add a parameter called sept and then pass on my semicolon. Now if I try to execute this one, you can see I was able to get the result. So that's how we play with different parameters. The next thing is to read our file directly from online source. In the next lecture, let us directly use our online links and perform the same. Welcome back. So in the previous lecture, we used our save files, that is files that are already saved in our system like JSON, CSV, text and Excel. In this lecture, we will be using direct APIs or response of APIs or direct links. For example, I will be using this API JSON link to directly fetch our data, or maybe this link, or maybe this one, or direct downloadable file. You can see if I click enter for this particular link, you will see a download option. That means if I visit this link, I will have my traffic.csv file available for download. So you'll be using these type of link to fetch data. So let me create a new data frame and let me copy this one. Create a data frame 6. Now instead of using that file name, I just need to pass my link in the codes. So here I have my traffic.csv link. All I have to do is just pass that link here and let me execute this one. You can see now I am able to fetch all the data that was available in this particular file. Let me try that for JSON. Let me create a new data frame and replace CSV with JSON and replace the link. Execute this file and you will get the exact result that you are getting with JSON file. And if you want to try out, you should try these other links also. You will get basic knowledge of how to use online files and how to use response of API in our pandas. Let me execute this one. Yeah, I'm getting the same result. So that's how it works, and it is quite easy for you to understand with Jupyter Notebook. So we have tried our API and we have also tried our CSV file. One important thing that I want to tell you about is whenever you close your Jupyter Notebook and reopen it, you have to execute few lines, like you have to execute pandas every time, because remember it is a combination of editor as well as interactive shell. So whenever you use interactive shell, you have to write some stuff at the initial level. You cannot start writing code. With Jupyter Notebook, we have an advantage that our code is saved, but it actually works like interactive shell. So whenever you try to run the command without importing pandas, it will give you an error. So you have to execute this line and then you can execute any line, it will work fine. I hope that you understand how to use your direct link instead of files, and this would be really helpful for you in future. So in the next lecture, let us talk more about manipulation. I hope this lecture was helpful. See you in the next one. Now let's get back to work. From this lecture, we'll be talking about manipulation. How to delete a column, or maybe adding new column, maybe adding new rows, modifying some values, or maybe about indexing and slicing. So we'll be doing all this stuff from this lecture. So the first thing that I want to talk about is, remember this one is the column or the header, and this one is the row, or we call as index. So if I talk about first index of visitor, that is 700. And if I talk about first and second index of visitor, that is 700 and 900. If I talk about first column and then of first row, then it means 700. If I talk about first column and first and second row, that means 700 and 900. So these are actually labels. So whenever we try to slice something or whenever we try to index something, we use label based indexing. So that means I would be using their names, particular names. I can say like data of visitor, bounce rate and country, or I can use position like 0, 1, 2, 3. So something like that I need to follow. So there are two approaches for slicing and indexing. The first one is label based and the second one is position based. So let us get started. So let us take our first task. What I have to do is I have to take a slice, or I have to take a index from 2nd to 5th, and I need only country and clicks. So for that I would be using my data frame, and then I need to use loc, that is LOC, and then with a square bracket I need to pass two parameters. So I need to pass the label names, that is if I'm taking index I need to pass their label names, and if I'm taking columns I need to pass their label names. So suppose I need a intersection from 2 to 5th and country to clicks. So I would be passing the first value as 2 to 5th and then comma, and then you need intersection from country to clicks. Let me take this example and execute this one. You see I got my result. So here I am taking labels. Remember, whenever you are going to use LOC, that is loc, so you are going to take intersection with labels. So here the difference will be, if I am taking the index value, as you remember with list, this 5th will not be included. In this case we are depending on labels, so it is working as a label and not the index value as 0, 1, 2, 3. It is actually label and it is considering as a label name. Same follows with this particular header. So one point I need to talk about, what if I need country, clicks and days. So all you have to do is take from countries to days. So it would take country, clicks and days. Let me execute this one. So here you will get the result from country, clicks and days. So it's basically an intersection, and what we are doing is we are taking this particular part. You have to be careful with slicing. And one thing you need to remember is this is not saved in our df1 memory. So if I use my df1 and print that, you would see it's still having this result. That means this loc is not an in place operation. So you have to create a new variable and store them. Let me create a df2, store these values inside that variable. Let me open a new shell and then print out my df2. Here you can see I got my result successfully. I hope this was clear. Let me execute few more results and delete this shell. What if I need a value from a single cell? Maybe I want clicks and I just want for this particular third label. So all I have to do is just pass that value. So maybe I just want this 3 and I just want clicks. You can see I got the value of 12, that is clicks, and then from third. So this looks fine. I'm able to get the value of single cell. Now what if I need all the rows for clicks? That means I need all the rows only for clicks. For rows we can get all the elements and then comma and just add click. So this will return you the result of clicks. Now this was basically important for loc, in which we totally depend on labels, and I really agree with that. Because you might be using different name. Instead of 0, 1, 2, 3 you might be using some particular index like we did in the earlier videos. We used to set an index and then we can use that. The second one I want to talk about is iloc, which totally depend on the index values, that is the numberings. Now here I need to pass two values again, but remember this time in numbers. So suppose I need to slice values from 6 to 8 and I want from visitor to days. So 6 to 8 means I need to take 6 at my starting and I want to include the 8th, so I would be taking 9. That means 6 to 9 where 9 will not be included. Remember the list system? Also we are using iloc. If we are using loc, that is LOC, I would be using 6 to 8 because it depends on labels, whereas iloc depend on the index position. The second thing is I am taking visitors today. So visitor means its value is 1 and the day value is 5. If I execute this one, you can see I am able to grab that result. So here I cannot pass visitors as a label and I cannot pass day as a label. And if I try to attempt that, I would definitely get an error. Let me try that one. Here you can see I got an error, and if I scroll down you can see cannot do slice indexing on with these indexers. So this is the type error and I cannot utilize that. You can also do a lot more stuff with iloc. So if you want a particular row, maybe I just want row number 5, I can simply enter that, and if I execute this one, you can see I got all the values of row number 5, that is my visitor, my bounce rate, my country, then click, and if I want just one value, I just need to pass that particular position. Maybe I want from visitor to BR only. So remember, this last value would not be included. So visitor to BR means 1 and 2, where 3 will not be included. And let me do that one again from my visitor to day, and that's fine. So this looks fine. The next thing I want to talk about is IX. We have talked about loc, then iloc, and then IX. So IX basically take both. It take indexes as well as label, so which is quite convenient. But remember, IX will be removed somehow in the upcoming updates, maybe in the mid of 2019 or maybe at the end of 2019. So you have to be careful with loc and iloc only. And if I try to run this example with IX, it would work fine. But remember, IX will be removed with upcoming Python update. Let me use IX. So after using IX, I got my result. I also got a depreciation warning. So I need to check pandas documentation. So that's fine, I will be using iloc and loc, and the both are sufficient to extract any portion of our data frames. I hope this lecture was helpful. The motive of this lecture was to make you understand how to slice things, how to slice a particular portion, and how to take particular values. So see you in the next one, where we'll be talking about how to delete columns and rows. Now let us quickly talk about deleting columns and rows. So in this particular example, we have several columns. So what if I need to drop my day column? So for that, all we have to do is use our data frame. Then we have a method called drop, and that would take two parameters. The first one will be label of row or column, and the second one will be 0 or 1. 0 is for rows and 1 will be for column. So suppose I need to drop day column. So here I am taking day, that is my label, and how to tell pandas that this is a column? I need to pass one. Let me execute this one. You can see in my new result I have a day column missing. Same follows with my row. Let me remove row number 8. Remember, this is our label. And here to tell pandas that this is a row, I need to pass 0. And if I execute this one, you can see I have a missing row number 8. But remember, all these drop methods are not in place. So if I print data frame, you would get the original one. To make them in place, you have to store them in a particular variable. Either you can store them in the same variable, that is df1, or you can create new variables like df2 or df3 and store inside them. So for now, I am taking this just for an example. In both these cases, we were passing label name. But what if I need to pass the position, that is my index position? So what if instead of passing visitors or instead of passing day, I just need to pass my position, that is my 5th position? You can do that. So all we have to do is create a data frame and then use the drop method and the two parameter that we are passing. So instead of label, I can pass the particular position with the help of my indexing, and the second thing I need to pass is the column. And if I try to execute this one, so you can see I actually drop my day column. And if you directly execute the value of this column, you would get the day as result. So I'm taking its position. And same I can do with my index. If I execute this one, you can see it would return me as my fifth label, and here it returned my day as label. So here I'm actually passing label only, but with the help of position. So if I take index here, and if I want to drop my second position, that is my second label, all I have to do is use my position, and also I need to change this value to 0. And if I execute this one, you can see I have deleted that. Remember, this is in place, so if you are doing it for permanent result, try to store that in a memory, either a new variable or with the df1 itself. Now this was quick and easy way to actually drop our columns and rows. So in the next lecture, let us talk about how we can update values for a certain column position, and also talk about how to add new columns and rows. So that's all for this lecture. See you in the next one. Now in this lecture, let us talk about how to update and add new columns and new rows. Before doing anything like that, remember how we add new element inside that list, or remember how we add new element inside a dictionary. Also remember how we add new element in a data frame with the help of a dictionary. So what we used to do is, we take the heading and then pass the number of values, that is a key and value pair. Same we have to follow to add a new column. So the first thing that we need to do is, just take our data frame and then use a square brackets and then give the column name. So here my column name will be status. Now with this column I need to provide 10 values. So suppose you have a new column here, and then you will have 10 values for this particular column. But what if I only try to pass 2 values and then execute this program? You can see I got an error, and here the error is value error, that is length of values does not match length of index. So I have to provide 10 values to match my column and index shape. So let me pass 10 values here. Here you can see I have added 10 values. Let me execute this one. Once that is executed, let me print my df1. Here you can see I have added a new column. You can see I have actually passed a single value for 10 times. Instead of that, I could have used a single element and then multiply it by 10 times. That would be quite easier. Here you can see I have added a new column. Also we could have used shape method. So if I try to print my df1.shape, it returns a tuple with 2 values. The first one is length of our index and the second one is length of our column. So I can use my shape, and here I can take result for my position 0. So that would be 10, and I can actually use this one and pass here and execute this one. You can see it still give me the same result. So that would work absolutely fine if we can use our shape method and then utilize the first value of tuple, that is size of index. I can also play with these values and add an element with them. So if I want to update, I would be doing something similar that I do with list. And if I want to update my day, let me take my data frame. So with my day, I just want to add some name or variable after my Tuesday, after my Wednesday. Let me try to implement that. So here remember I am updating and I am taking my previous value and then adding a new string along with that. You can see the result. Now I have my day and then a string added to that. So that's how I can actually update my previous value, and I can also add new value with them. You can actually remove the day and you can do certain more things. And if you want to do specifically for a particular value, that means select with the index position of column and rows and then pass the new value that you want to update. That would work fine. Now here we have talked about adding new column and updating old column. The second thing I want to talk about adding new rows. So there is no defined method of how to add a new row. The simplest way we can do is we can use traverse method. So take a simple example, traversing our particular example right now. So that means this will be turned into rows and this would be turned into columns. and then we will be adding new column to that. So we will be adding column number 10 and then traversing back. That means our column would become rows and rows will become column. That means we'll be getting our old result back with a new row. So what we have done is we have took our data frame. We cannot add a new row. So what we did is we traversed that, added a new column and traversed back. So our new column added would be working as new row. I think that might sound confusing, but let us do that. Before doing that, let me clean this up and start with my traffic.csv. So this is our data frame. I want to add a new row called as 10. So the first thing I need to do is I need to traverse our current data frame. So everything I would be doing is inside my df2, that is my data frame second. And I would be storing my traverse data frame 1. So this will be the result. I have 10 columns at this point of time, and these will be our rows, that is date, visitor, BR, country, clicks and day. Now the second simplest step, just add a new column. And remember here I need to pass 6 values. The first value will be date, so that would be 11. The second value will be my visitor. The third value will be my BR. The fourth value will be my country. Fifth will be my clicks. And then will be my day. Once that is done, just execute this one. Let me print my new result. You can see I have added a new column. Now all I have to do is just traverse this back and store that into my data frame 1. So all I have to do is just overwrite my data frame 1 and store the traverse result of my data frame 2. And if I execute this one, you can see that's done. So you can see this is the simplest and the easiest way to add a new row. And also you can try this method to update few values of a row. So you have to traverse, do all the changes, traverse back. So that's the simplest way. So that's all for this lecture. I hope you understand about pandas as well as Jupyter Notebook. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Hey guys, welcome back. In this lecture, let us talk about APIs. So by now, I hope you have heard about this term, maybe in some textbook, maybe in some YouTube video, or maybe on some Wikipedia article. So before taking any formal definition, let us take an example and understand why API are important and what is the main purpose of them. So let us take an example of a restaurant. You go to a restaurant and order some food, and the food is served by a waiter from a kitchen. During this whole process, you serve as a client, your kitchen is your server, and your waiter is your API. That means client wants some information or some food, and your server, that is your kitchen, is ready to deliver that information. That means the food. Now you need a connection between them to send a request and take a response. That means you order your favorite dishes with the help of API, that is your waiter. So your waiter take your request from you to kitchen, that is your server, and once the food is prepared, that is the information is prepared, it take a response from kitchen and serve to you. That means it deliver you the response. So you send the request and get a response. Now why we need APIs? Now APIs are really important to serve multiple requests. Whenever we are going to work with a big application, you need a solid backend. That means there will be only one backend, but there can be many frontends. You might have a frontend for your mobile app, that is your Android app. Then you have a frontend for your iOS app. Then you might have a website. So all would be connected to a same server that have a backend as well as a database. So here all this will be connected with the help of API. Maybe a waiter can bring a request from your mobile app, or a waiter can bring a request from your iOS app, or a waiter can bring a request from your website. That means we have only one server, but we can take multiple requests and send multiple response with the help of waiter. Remember, here waiter is our API. So we don't need to create different database, we don't need to create different servers. That is, a different server for mobile app, a different server for website. We don't need to do that if we are playing with API. So my main motive with this lecture was to make you comfortable and make you understand about what is API and why it is important. In the next lecture, let us talk about CoinMarket API. So we'll be looking at how a response looks like and how we can send our own request. And also there are two types of API. One is GET and one is POST. You will read about more types once you start dealing with them. But currently, remember, major types are two, GET and POST. Remember, whenever we only need information from server side and we don't want to store anything in our database, then we use GET. That means we ask for some information and they give us a response. But whenever we want to store some information in our database, we use POST type. That means we'll be sending a request as well as some of our data that need to be stored in our database and then get a response, maybe a response of successfully stored or maybe a response of something related to that. So we have two types, one is GET and one is POST. In the next lecture, let us talk more on this and start using our CoinMarketCap API. Hey guys, welcome back. In this lecture, let us talk about CoinMarketCap and its API. In the previous lecture, we have taken a brief about API. Now let us dive deep with CoinMarketCap. As you know, it is one of the biggest cryptocurrency market information site. It gives us details about all the coins, their market cap, price, 24-hour volume, also circulation, change in price, and lot more graphs. That information can also be achieved with the help of API. That means we can take all these information with the help of an API and show on our web app or maybe on our website or maybe in our terminal commands. So we'll be doing that. So to get our free API, all you have to do is just scroll down at the bottom and here you will get an option for Crypto API. Now all you have to do is just register a free plan and you will get access to 10,000 queries for a month. So you can also check out their pricing. If any point of time you want to go with a professional plan, you can do that. But in this course, we are going to use free plan only. Just register your account and you are done with the access. Once your account is created, they are going to send you a verification mail. Just verify your email and you will be redirected to a dashboard to controller API. Let me close all the other tabs. Now remember, whenever you are going to play with a paid API, you will get an API key. This API key works as your username and password and you can regenerate it, you can disable it at any point of time. But if someone has access to your API key, they can do anything with your account. That means they can use your all the requests or they might use it to send some post request. This is a basic trial account, so you don't have to worry much. But if you are working with a company, if you are working with a paid software, then this API is quite important. At this point of time, we are going to use a free account. So this is not as important as if you are working with a company API. So all you have to do is just move on to your documentation and let us check few details here. So you will get a quick guide and you will also get information about API key and all the other forms that are really important. But the major question is how we are going to get information with this particular API. For that we need to use our URL and pass out different parameters. And to get this URL you have to look at these endpoints. Maybe you want all the information of all the cryptocurrency. So you will get a URL something like this. So let me take an example. So here I have a URL in which I am currently not passing my API key. So this is somewhat my CoinMarketCap API URL look like. So that means I can get all the information with the help of this link. Currently I am getting an error with my response because I am not passing my API key. For that we have to pass a parameter. Remember, this was my URL, and after that whenever I am trying to add a question mark or maybe an AND option, I am passing a parameter. So this is one of my parameter which set values into USD. This is another of my parameter which set my value from start equals to 1. This is my another parameter which sets a value of limit equals to 2. So we need to add a parameter for our API. At the starting of our documentation, they have given us our preferred method. That is, this is the method by which we need to pass our API key. So all you have to do is use an AND option, then paste out this content equals to your API key. Now you can see I am able to get all the information which I require. So currently I am starting with my ID as 1 and I have limit of 2 and my currency is set to USD, and then this is the command for my API key and I am getting information for 2 crypto coins, that is, one is Bitcoin and the other one is XRP, that is Ripple. These are currently the top 2 coins. Okay, let me change the limit. If I go with 5, now you can see I have an updated result with Bitcoin, then I have Ripple, then Ethereum, then Bitcoin Cash, and then EOS. So I have now 5 results. So that's how we play with API. And also if you go to your dashboard and refresh this, you can see I have used my 2 credits for today. So that means I have a limit of 333 credits per day with my free API and also 10,000 credits per month. So here I am talking about paid APIs, how company API are used. There is also a practice API which is available for free by CoinMarketCap. So if you don't want to register anywhere, if you don't want to mess with anything, I am providing you a link that will give you direct information. So if you are going to visit this desired URL, that is api.coinmarketcap.com, then you can get access to a free API that is given by CoinMarketCap. You don't have to pass any of your key and you will get all the information in one click. So you have to filter out your result according to yourself. So we are getting top 100 coin information in one go. And remember, whenever we are going to use a paid API, you can see the data has more information, we have more security, and also we have more flexibility. So if I check 5,000 here, and I'm going to get information of all the cryptocurrencies that are available. That is approx something around 3,000. So if I scroll down, since my limit is 5,000, so I'm going to get all the information. So the last one is 3,185, I guess. So I get all the information of all these coins according to your rank or according to their ID. So that's how API work. We have different parameters, we have different URLs and all the different things. In the next lecture, we will be talking about how to get this data into our command prompt or into our program or into our script and start using that data. That's all for this lecture. I hope by now you understand about API, how to register an account and how to get an API. I have taken an example of CoinMarketCap. You can take any other example. So maybe you are creating a project that relates to Facebook. So there is a Facebook API, there is a Twitter API, maybe you are working with something else. Everyone has their own developer API that they provide users to work on. They have different plans, there are some free API and we can work with that. Remember, you have to use your parameters to filter out result and you have an API key for the security. At any point of time you think your API key is not secure, just disable that or regenerate a new API key. So that's all for this lecture. See you in the next one. Now in this lecture we will be fetching data with the help of APIs. The first step is we need to use 2 modules. One is request and the other one is JSON. So the request module helps us to send a HTTP request and get some data. So if I have a API link, I can use this API link to fetch data. The second one is JSON. So request help us to get the data. JSON module help us to parse the data. That is, we can select and we can parse over that particular data. So we'll be doing that. Let us open my Atom. What I have done is I have created a PyCrypto file on my desktop and I have created a main.py. And all the codes that I am going to write would be on main.py. Let me open my Atom as well as open my terminal. So here I can run my main.py. We can also use online editor at this point of time. That would be much comfortable. Just create a main.py and start writing the code. For now, I will be using online editor to explain you several concepts. This was just to make you understand that what is the process we need to follow. Yeah, here I am at my REPL, that is one of my online shell, online interpreter. So the first thing that we are going to do is import our two modules. One is request and JSON. 95% chances are that they are already installed in your system with the help of Python itself. But if not, all you have to do is just use pip install request and pip install JSON. That would be just few second task. Now we have imported our module. Let me create a variable in which I would be storing my API data. Let me create a API request variable in which I would be storing the data that I am getting from my API. So I would be using my module request dot get, and then I need to pass my API link. Let me change my screen size, and here the data would be stored inside my API request. The second thing is, once I get this data in my API request variable, I need to use JSON to get a parsable data. So let me create a new variable called API. Now I need to use JSON module, then load function. Inside that load function, I need to pass my API request as well as dot content, which help us to deliver the content of this API request. Once that is done, now in this API variable, we have all our data. Let me try to print this one so you will have a better idea. Here you can see I got my data here, and you will see that this is the data that I am fetching and this is stored here. Since we are currently fetching data of 5 coins with a limit of 5 starting at 1, and we have certain API key which allow us to fetch this data. Now let us also try this with free API. And I was able to fetch this data. So this works fine till now. I hope now you understand this basic stuff about this request and JSON module, how we can connect with API, how we can load this data, and how we can pass with them and then print along with that. So in the next lecture, let us get a lot of data, and the small thing that I want to focus on, that these two type of API would be a lot difficult to work on. So if you are working on this free API, it is quite easy. It is just a list and then a dictionary. So you can fetch data in just one or two variable itself. But if you are going to work with this Pro API, then it would quite difficult. So in the next lecture, let us discuss about it and start working on our API project. I hope this lecture was helpful. See you in the next one. Now in this lecture, let's start focusing on how to extract data. So at this point of time, we have all the data, which is quite confusing, and we need to understand that how to fetch a specific data, maybe just the name, price, rank, symbol, some sort of specific thing, since all the data is not useful for us. Our main focus is to create a portfolio app. So we mostly depend on symbol, name and price. So that would be sufficient. Let us start taking that and understand a bit more about these two type of API. Let me replace my free API with paid API. Just a little bit of formatting, and here at currently I am printing my complete API response. So what I need to do is I need to get specific data. Suppose I need to get just the symbol. So what I have to do is I need to enter this dictionary, select the data. Then inside this data, I need to enter in this list, that is the first item of list, and inside that first item of list, I need to enter inside this symbol. This looks fine. So all I have to do is I need to enter into dictionary, that is of data. And once I am into data, remember to look into the response clearly. So this dictionary is divided into two parts. The first one is status and the second one is data, which contain all the response related to cryptocurrencies. The status is just for timestamp, some error code and all the other things. But the main cryptocurrency data is inside this. So it is in the form of list, which contain this dictionary as 0th item, then the first item and so on. Here I need the 0th item, and once I get this 0th item, I need to get symbol. Let's see if we get BTC or not. Okay, we got our result, that is Bitcoin. Following the same pattern, we can actually fetch all the data. Let me try to fetch my price. So all I have to do is, and instead of getting into symbol, I need to get inside my code and then USD and then price. This looks bit different. Remember, whenever we are going to use list, we will be using numbering, that is 0, 1, 2, 3, that is my index position. And whenever I am going to use dictionaries, I am going to use the specific name. One small thing, if you look into JSON file or JSON response, you would see dictionaries everywhere. So it is really important for you to understand dictionaries very well. This looks fine. Let me print out my price also. I need to get inside my code. Once I am inside my code, I need to get inside my USD. Once I am inside my USD, I need to get inside my price. Let me run this one. Yeah, I am successfully able to fetch this data. Remember, whenever I am trying to hit run, that means I am sending a request. So these requests are counted in my database from my account. So whenever you send a request, it is counted in databases, it is counted in your dashboard. This looks fine till now, and we now know how to fetch data. Let me try this simple thing with my free API also, because from the next lecture everything would be done in this particular API, and you can just try out this free API. It is easy to use and you can just directly fetch the data. Let me try to fetch symbol and price here. So all I have to do is just use this particular link. Now with this free API, all we have to do is just fetch the first data of our list, and inside this first position we have a dictionary and we have to get inside the symbol. So we just don't need to get into data, we just need to get inside a 0th index and then symbol. Same follows with this one, 0th index, and then that would be price underscore USD. If I run this one, you see I was able to fetch the data. So that's how things work. And it looks fine at this point of time. We now know how to get inside the data. In the next lecture, let us do more interesting thing with our Pro API. Would be creating some loops and then start fetching data according to our portfolio. So see you in the next one, where we are going to do a lot more tasks. Welcome back. Now in this lecture, let us start using some loops and also start creating portfolio according to ourselves. So before that, let us start changing step by step with our program. So first thing I need to understand is, if I need to print data of 5 coins, basic data, that is my symbol and price of 5 coins, I have to do a lot of tasks. I need to use index position of all the coins. So suppose I need to print for 5 coins, I have to copy this one and print out for 5 times. With each coin, I need to change index position. So this can be automated with the help of for loop. The second thing is, I need to use some formatting to remove all these extra decimals. That can be done in a simple way. So first let us simplify this small thing. Revert back changes, and here add a simple formatting code that we follow, and I guess we are comfortable with that. Just use 2 decimal point and then use a format and store everything inside this particular format. Let me run this one. Yeah, this looks better in shape. Now also use a for loop to print all the 5 coins that are in our limitation. So let us just add a for loop, and I would be taking a range of 0 to 5. Remember, 5 is not included, so it would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be total 5 coins. And I am taking an I, so I need to replace this 0 with I. And after every symbol and price, I would be drawing a line to get a result that can be differentiated. Now if I run this one, you can see now it is better in shape. This looks fine. Now let us start understanding what we are going to do. I'm going to create my own list in which I would be adding my own coin that I have invested. Since we are dealing with portfolio, so we need to talk about coins in which we have invested. So let me create a list. So I would call this list variable as coins, and I just need to pass their symbol. So in the later stage, we would be matching their symbol to perform any operation. So the first coin that I have invested is BTC, and the second coin is EOS. I would be taking 2 only at this point of time. You can take 5, you can take 10 according to yourself. And remember, these 2 coins should be in range. That means these 2 coins should be in this particular range. If they are not, just change your limitation from 5, you can make it 10, you can make it 100. So there are approx 2200 or 3200 cryptocurrencies. You can match accordingly. So you can just take all the cryptocurrencies, it would be quite easy. But at this point of time, for practice purpose, I would like to get a small result so we can do everything quite fast. So I would be taking BTC as well as EOS, which is already in my list of 5. The second thing I need to do is I want to match out this data. So I just need data of these 2 coins. Since I am talking about my portfolio, so I want information of my coins only in which I have invested. I don't want information for BCH or ETH or XRP. I want information for BTC and EOS. This would work fine. So what I should do is I need to match the element of my coin, that is the 0th element of my coin, with the element of my API response, that is this API. If these both symbol matches, that means I'm in the right stage. So all I have to do is add a new for loop. So in this for loop, what I need to do is I need to select a coin from my coins variable. So the first coin would be selected as BTC, and I would be taking that, and I would be adding a if condition. If, now we need to compare both the coins, that is the first element of this coin and also the element of my API. So if this API element is equals to my coin, then I would be performing these steps. Let me run this one. Now you can see I am successfully able to fetch the information of these 2 coins only. We can add lot more information according to ourselves. That is, we can add their name, their slug, their total supply and all the other things. But the motive of this lecture was to make you understand of this for loop. So what we are doing is we are taking a range so we can loop through this API data. And the first range would be 0. That means we are taking the 0 data. So 0 data means our BTC. Once we get into BTC, I am taking the list of this coin. So I would be taking the first element of this coin and then matching the symbol of my API data as well as my coin, that is my BTC and BTC. If that is matched, I would be getting inside this. And if I am inside this, I would be printing my BTC and its price. So this would be the first 2. Now what I am going to do is I would be taking the second element of coin, that is EOS. And then I would check if BTC is equal to EOS. If not, I would exit this loop. And also there is no element left in this coin. I would just go with the range 1. I would be taking this 1, taking my BTC, check out my 1, that is my XRP is equals to BTC. No, we'd go to the second coin, that is EOS, and follow the same. It's quite simple. You just have to understand loops in a better way. And I would recommend you after every few lecture just perform these steps, because these things depend on your concept. So that's all for this lecture. In the next lecture, let us print all the data that we want. I hope this lecture was helpful. So see you in the next one. I hope things are going well till now. Now let us start talking about creating a portfolio. So the first thing we need to understand what are the things that are going to include in our portfolio. So if I am purchasing a coin and if I want to check my profit and loss and the other small thing, I would be requiring 3 things that need to be included in my portfolio. First is my coin. So it will be either a coin name or coin symbol. The second thing will be what is the amount that I have purchased, and the third thing will be the price, at what price I have purchased that coin. So suppose I have purchased EOS and number of EOS I have purchased is 100 and the amount at which I bought is 2.05. That is, each coin cost as 2.05 and I have bought 100 coins. That means currently I own 100 EOS at 2.05 each. So that would be $205. So this is the amount I have invested. Similarly, I need to talk about BTC. So currently I own 2 BTC that I have purchased at 3,200. So this is the thing that we need to include in our portfolio. So there is a problem at this point of time. Currently we are storing everything in a list. So what I need to do is I just need to remove this list and I need to store dictionary. So that means I would be storing a single item as dictionary. So the first item will be my first coin portfolio. The second item will be my second coin portfolio. So I can store them inside a dictionary like CoinMarket is using to send out the data. I think this sounds confusing, but let us do that so it would be comfortable for you. Let me create my first element, and inside this first element I need to pass three things as we talked about. So the first thing that I need to pass is symbol. So symbol is BTC because the first coin that I own is BTC. The second thing I need to write is the amount I have owned. So I would take it as amount underscore owned. The third thing is price per coin, that is at what price I have purchased this coin, that is one single coin. Later on our program we would calculate the total amount we have spent for this particular coin. That is, if I have bought 2 BTC at 3,200, that means I have invested $6,400 for this particular coin. So this is the first element that I have added, that is my first coin portfolio. Now I need to add my second element, that is my EOS. And then copy paste something similar. I just need to change these values. Now I need to change few things here. So if I go inside this coin, and this would take the complete dictionary. This coin element would take the 0th index, that means this complete dictionary, and I need to go inside my symbol. So I need to add a bracket and then symbol. And things looks fine. Let me run this one. Yeah, it's working perfectly fine and I'm able to get these values. Now before ending this lecture, let me do one small thing. Let me also print the coin name here. So that would be quite comfortable, because from the next lecture we'll be talking about profit and loss, because at this price we have bought this coin and this is the current price. That means I need to calculate some profit as well as loss. What I need to do is, let me print name of the coin and then dash and then the symbol, and here it would be pricing. I would be adding that format. That would be quite easy for us to understand. So let me add name before my symbol, then concatenate it with a space, dash, space. Let me replace this one and things looks fine. Let me run this one again. Yeah, it's Bitcoin dash BTC, and let me add a message of price here. Yeah, this is much better. So this looks fine. So in the next lecture, let us talk about profit and loss, and I hope this lecture was helpful. So see you in the next one. Now in this lecture, let us do some math and also talk about some profit and loss. So if we have invested some amount, there should be some profit and there can be some loss. So few things that we are going to talk about here is the total amount we have paid. That is, if we have purchased these coin, that means we have invested, that is, we have paid some amount. The second thing is, what is the current value? So we have invested something, so it can be into profit, it can be into loss. So I need to understand what is the current value of my portfolio. The third thing we need to talk about is profit and loss per coin. And the fourth thing that we will talk about is our overall portfolio. So these are the 4 things that we need to talk about. Let us start with our first one. So total amount we paid for each coin would be the amount we own and the amount we paid per coin. Let me take a new variable, that is total paid, and that would be equal to, if I talk about for BTC, it would be 2 into 3200, and for EOS it would be 100 into 2.05. Let me take that one. So all I have to do is just use my coin, because all the information will be inside this coin, and I need to use the value of amount owned and multiply it by price per coin. This looks fine. Let me print this one so it would be more clear for us. Let me run this one. Here you can see I got the value, so I also need to format that. Before that, I also need to print here the amount we own. So that would be much convenient since we are going to talk about portfolio. So I just need to write the amount we own. And also let me format this total paid. That would be convenient for us. Once that is done, let me run this one. Now here you can see we have Bitcoin, that is BTC, our price, number of coin we own, and the total amount we paid. The second thing I need to print is our current value. So when we bought, it was 3200. The current value of Bitcoin is 3579. So the current value would be 2 into 3579. And the third thing we need to talk about is profit and loss per coin. So that would be 3579 minus 3200. So let us do these two simple things. Total number of coin we own into the current value of each coin. So this would give us 2 multiplied by the current value, that is 3579.35. So this will be our current value. Let me print this one. Now the third thing we need to talk about is profit and loss per coin. So that would be quite easy. All I have to do is use my API price and then subtract my portfolio price. I would take it as profit loss per coin and then copy paste my variable. Let me run this one also. Here you can see this is the profit I am having per coin, and this is the profit I am having with my EOS. I can just multiply with number of coins, so I would get my total profit for both the coins. Let me do that also. So all I have to do is create a variable called total profit and loss with this coin, and then that would be equals to our previous profit and loss, that is profit and loss per coin. It would be multiplied by number of coins we own. So if I am having $379 profit with one coin, so for 2 coin it would be just multiply by 2. And if I am having a profit of 0.31 from EOS, so the total profit would be 0.31 into the number of coin I own for EOS, that is 100. It would be 30.81. Let me run this one also. Here one small thing that you need to remember is I am taking 2 decimal places. So it might bring a minute difference in the calculation of your final value. Now all these things are done. I just need to print one last thing, that is my total profit and loss. So if I'm getting a profit of $30 here, if I'm getting a profit of $760 here, so what is my total profit and loss? I need to print at the end of this program, maybe after this loop. So all I have to do is just take a new variable here, that is my total profit and loss, and assign 0 at the initial level, and once it gets inside this loop, we can assign value to it. So the new total profit and loss will be the old one plus the profit and loss for this particular coin. So it would be 0 plus 759. And once this loop is done, it would be taking for EOS. By that time, the value of this would be changed to 759.78 and it would add 30.81. So the total value turned out to be different. So we'll be taking loop to start with 0, then 759.81 and then 30.81. This looks fine. I hope you understand about this. And once the program is done, let me print the final value. So all I have to do is print at the final line about my total profit and loss for my portfolio and then print my total profit and loss that we have calculated. And remember to do these formatting things so we don't get error. Once that is done, let us run our program. Yeah, things looks fine here. All I have to do is just scroll a bit up and add a lining so we don't get confused with the compiler message as well as our result. So I would be adding 2 lines and this looks perfectly fine. I hope till now you are able to understand each and everything, and if not, would request you to rewind these lectures and watch again, because these are important concepts that we are creating ourselves. We are doing some formatting, we are calculating some things. So this can be different for you. You might take different coin and your result would be different. So just spend some time with this and you will be quite comfortable, because now we are going to work with GUI, that is our Kinter. So I just need to take all these code into my Atom and run them. And to make sure everything is working perfect, I just need to change few values. So I would be taking it as 3500 and let me take some higher values. If I run this one here, you can see now I am getting a different result of profit and loss. My profit is currently 165 and here I got a minus 145 and the total portfolio value is 151. So this program is working as expected perfectly fine. And let me run this one after getting back to my old values. So till now everything is working perfectly fine. All we have to do is take this result, paste into Atom and test this one. And from the next lecture, let us talk about Kinter, that is our GUI software by which we can create application that we run into Windows or Macs or Unix. So you would be comfortable to know and understand how we can create our own application. I hope this lecture was helpful. See you in the next one. Welcome back. Now in this lecture we will be talking about GUI, that is graphical user interface. So there are different type of libraries that are available with Python and that create our work very easy. The first library that you can talk about is Kinter, that is tkinter. So basically this is one of the best library and this is one of the most popular library. The second one is PyQt, which is currently quite famous and have got some really good updates in 2018. So these two are important libraries for GUI, that is graphical user interface. We will be using Kinter for our project. The next thing I need to do is I just need to copy whole code from my online REPL to my offline Atom. So I would be saving in my main.py, which was inside my PyCrypto folder. So now my complete data is inside this main.py. Now let me close my online REPL and let us talk about this tkinter. So this basically helps us to create our programs into some graphical format. So if I talk about some basic graphical user interface, you can talk about Notepad, which is quite common. You see, this is the title, this is their favicon, that is their icon, and then there is a menu, and then we have our whole section. So this is also a GUI for a Notepad code. And if I talk about second example, which is calculator, and which is quite famous. And if you have seen this type of calculator, you're already quite familiar with GUI. So we are going to create something similar for our crypto portfolio. Before moving forward or before trying to do anything else, I would recommend you to visit this tkinter documentation, that is Kinter documentation, which is available on python.org. And this is pretty decent and simple documentation. You will get a basic info about this module. And also remember, this Kinter module is pre-installed with Python 3 version. So if you are using Python 2.7, you have to use pip install Kinter. And if you are using Python 3.x, the chances are Kinter is already installed. So all you have to do is just directly import. And if you go to the documentation, you will get a brief idea. So let us get back to our Atom and start our work. Since Kinter is already installed in our system, so all I have to do is just import Kinter without any issue. So I would be using from Kinter import all the classes. That's done. And if you are not sure that Kinter is installed in your system or not, just open your folder, open your command prompt or terminal, and inside Python shell just import Kinter. And if you see that your interpreter is not giving any error, you are working fine. So let us just get back to our Atom, and from the next lecture let us start working on Kinter, that is our GUI, that is our GUI. So see you in the next one. We will be talking about a lot more regarding graphical user interface. Now in this lecture let us start working with our Kinter. So we have already imported all the classes from Kinter. Now I have to use TK class to start our working. There are 3 steps that are involved with any application of Kinter. The first one is to create an instance of tkinter. So that is, we are going to use TK class. The second will be all the process that we need to show on our graphical user interface. You will understand about this once we start working on it. The third will be to create our main loop. That is, if we are running any program, you will have a window open. So the window is only working till the main loop is functional. Once we close the window, we are going to exit that main loop. No worries if you don't understand anything at this point of time, we are going to work on everything. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create an instance with the help of TK class. So I'm creating a bit space, just start writing my program on the up shell and then we will arrange everything. Let me create a variable. I will call it as pipe crypto. You can call it anything what you want. And I would create the instance with the help of my TK class, and we don't need to pass any argument. So that's all, just use TK. The second step will involve everything that we need to show in our widget that we will be following in further lectures. And the third thing is to create our main loop. So this looks fine. Now I need to add few things with my Kinter. So if I take an example of GUI, that is graphical user interface, you see we have a title. So this is the title of our application. Then there is an icon which is optional. So we need to utilize that also. And all the coding part, that is the functionality of our application. So first let me add my title and then run our blank application. All I have to do is use my instance, then .title, and then I need to pass title as my argument. So I would be using my crypto portfolio. This looks fine. Let me try to comment everything else so we can get the result what we are expecting from these 3 lines. Now before running our file, I just want to mention this is capital T and small k. So once that is fixed, let us run our file. Let me open my CMD and just use my command python and my file name. You can see I just got my first application and you can just resize it. And this is my title, and I have 3 options for minimize, maximize and also close. And this is our current icon, that is favicon, which is by default with Kinter. We can replace this and we will be doing that in further lectures. But for now, my main motive was to make you understand about this basic Kinter application and how this graphical user interface work with our system. I hope this lecture was helpful. From the next lecture, let us start working on our GUI along with our coding part. So see you in the next one, and we are going to rock this series. Welcome back. Now in this lecture, we will be talking about different type of labels with our Kinter and also how we need to proceed with them. So there are some buttons, there are some labels, and also with this main loop, this is quite important. So whenever we run this program, so here you can see at currently my program is running. So if I close this one, then you can see my program is executed. Why this happens? Because of this main loop. So if I add a print statement after this main loop, and now let me run my program again. Here you can see the test line that I have added is not printed. So currently this program, this particular GUI is holding because of this main loop. And once I close my GUI application, all the lines that are after my main loop will execute. So here if I close my GUI application, you can see I got a print of test line. So this is one of the important things that we need to remember, that all the work that we are going to do is before our main loop. So that is fine. Now let us start working with all the labels that are available with our GUI. If I open my GUI, the GUI is divided with rows and column. So if you can see the lines here, if I talk about row 0 and column 0, it would be this part. If I talk about row 0 and column 1, it would be this part. It takes the size according to the grid that we are passing. So this basically works with the help of grid system. So if we are adding a button, we need to give the position. If I give row 0, column 0, then the button would be placed at this point. If I give row 0, column 4, then it would be at different point. So we have to take care about that. Let me close this one and add my label. So to add a label, all we have to do is create a variable and then label class which we are taking from Kinter module. And then we need to pass two arguments. The first one will be our instance of GUI and the second one will be the text that we need to pass. So here I am taking label in which I need to pass some text. Once that is done, I need to create a grid. That means I need to provide the position. So I would be taking my variable name, that is name.grid, and then I need to pass two arguments again. One will be row and the other one will be column. So I would be taking 0, 0. Here remember, with label we can pass the argument regarding color, regarding font, regarding size and different type of font styles. We will be doing that. Let me run this simple thing and take my result. You can see this is our result, and let me resize it, and this is our 0, 0 at currently. So that's how our label thing work, and something similar will be followed with our button. So this is not an extensive Kinter course. Our main focus is to get our job done with the help of Kinter and focus on how we can do a lot more thing. We can also use pack instead of grid, but that gives a lot less control. So we have to remove this one and just pass out pack. And let me test this one. You can see I got some sort of similar result, but we are not able to give row and column according to ourselves. So this is not in our control when we are going to use pack. But I would be recommending you to use grid system so we can arrange everything according to our requirement. Now let me add few more arguments along with my label. Now let me add few arguments. First will be our background color. I would be adding it as black. The second one is our font color. I would be preferring white. And then we need to pass sticky. So it would be according to our direction, that is alignment. It would be north, south, east and west. You can use NSEW according to your alignment. And let me run this one. Here you can see one of the basic result in which I have a label and which have a background color of black and a white as font color. Now this was some of the basic thing regarding Kinter. In the next lecture, let us format our app and create our own function in which we are going to create loops regarding our API and just fit everything regarding all our coin data. So we have Bitcoin, we have EOS, and then we have all this data. So we need to fit in between the main loop and our instance. We will be doing that in the next lecture. See you in the next one. Hey guys, welcome back. Now in this lecture, we need to do some formatting of our application and also start working on how our application is going to look and also what we have to follow. So the first thing we need to do is we need to uncomment all the codes and also start creating a sequence for them. That means whenever I am going to run this program, this API would be called and I need to restrict them. So what I need to do is I just need to get all this code inside a function. So whenever I am going to call a function, this code would be working. So let me uncomment this. And now I just need to create a simple function. I would be calling it as my portfolio. will give the indentation and just shift all my code inside this. So even if I'm going to run this main.py, this would not be called. That means API would not be called because I'm not calling this function. We need to take care of this because at this point of time I'm running this main.py just for the sake of my kinter, and every time when I'm going to run this file, my API would be called and I'm not utilizing it. Remember, API is paid and currently we are using a free version. But think about as a software owner, why you are going to call API every time when you are not going to utilize it. So what I am doing at this point of time, I am creating a function, adding all my code that are required for my calculation inside a function, and we will be utilizing that. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a header. So if you see this screenshot, I need to create a header something like this. Let us do that. So first let me cut from here and keep my function over the top. Go to the bottom and then paste the code. So this is something outside my function and I don't have to worry. And also let me change this test line to my program completed. This looks fine, and don't worry, we are going to remove all these print statements since we are going to use this label and grid to print out our result. So these print statements would not be useful. The first thing I need to do is I need to create several labels. That means I need to create a perfect heading and add all my information inside that. So let me create that. So all I have to do is just copy paste this. We will have approx 7 labels for our heading. That would be name, price, number of coins, total amount paid, current value, profit and loss per coin, and also total profit and loss with the coin. So these would be the 7 values. I just need to copy paste them and change this variable name. Let me do that. First one will be the name, simply coin name. Second one will be the price. Third will be the number of coins. Fourth will be total amount paid, followed by current value. Then we need to print profit and loss per coin, and the final will be total profit and loss with that particular coin. So these will be all our required fields. But remember, we need to also take care about the columns. So the first thing would be in the 0th column, the second one would be the first column. Then we need to follow with second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth. So this looks fine. Let me run this program so we will have a clear picture. And if you look here, this looks quite messed up, but we got our first row. And this is our coin name, then price, then coin owned, then total amount paid. So we can now understand that this is our row and we have just messed up with our column. That means with the color of our column. So at this point of time I am using black as my background and white as my font color. So that is why this looks quite messed up. If I open my CMD and close this one, you can see I got my program completed as the result. That is my output. So I need to focus few things regarding designing that we will be doing. I hope now you have an understanding that what we are going to do with this particular thing. So yeah, that's fine for this lecture, but we need to focus on designing. So what we need to do is we need to give it something a look of sheet and something that can give us a portfolio feel. So what I need to do is I just need to fill few forms. That is, I need to get more rows, that is our data, and also I need to differentiate my header with my current rows. That we will be doing, and also I just need to change this color because black and white is not giving me a feel of portfolio. So I need to focus on that. So that's all for this lecture at this point of time. In the next lecture, let us fix all these issues. First we need to focus on our designing bit, and then we need to start working by filling our portfolio. That means we need to start showing our result of Bitcoin, EOS and all the other coins that we have. So see you in the next one where we'll be filling up our portfolio. Welcome back. Now let us start working on our portfolio app. The first thing I need to do is I just need to change this background color so it is quite visible. Our main focus at current point is to develop the app, and the next focus will be to make it more appealing. At currently I just want to get this done, so we will be able to use that and differentiate thing. So I would be using two basic color, one would be white and then gray, and font color would be black. So this is the basic editing I done. I just used alternative colors for gray and white, and the font is currently black. Don't worry, we are going to fix this part at later stage. Currently our focus should be to create the app. So let me run this one and see out my result. And I think this is sufficient to differentiate these column, and this looks fine. Now let me fill this up with our result. So we have two coins currently, BTC and then EOS. Let me add them up. So all I have to do is just go here. Now here at this point of time I am printing this result. What I need to do is I just need to add them with the help of our labels. So let me copy these labels and just paste there. Now here instead of this text I need to pass out this particular result. So this would be the coin name, actual coin name, so that would be the Bitcoin, and the second will be the price. So I just need to fill out these. So what I need to do is I just need to copy out these result and paste them here, and I need to follow with all the steps. That's done. Let me comment out these. Okay, before talking anything else, let me run this one so we can see what result we are expecting. So if I run this one, you can see I got nothing. Why? Because I haven't called this function yet. So this is just inside this particular function and we haven't called it. The second problem we are going to face is that everything is on row 0. With the first loop, they are going to print this row 0 and column 0 as coin name. Then with row 0, column 1 as price. But whenever we are going to call this function, they are going to repeat the same. So this is going to create a conflict. So what I need to do is I just need to create an increased row number. So suppose if I run this application now. So at row 0 we want this heading. At row 1 I want my first coin. At row 2 I want my second coin. So I need to keep a track of row. So whatever the initial row would be, I just need to keep adding 1 with this particular row. So if I am going to print first coin, I just need to use the first row, second coin, then second row. That I have to follow because the 0th row is always going to be kept by this heading. But with our first, second, third and all the following row would be taken care with our coins. So what I need to do is I just need to add a new variable called row. I would call it as coin row and we will start it with 1 because 0th row is always going to be heading. So what I am going to do is I would take this first row and I would pass this first row for all my row fields. So now what is going to happen at this point of time? We started with this loop and our current row number is 1. So what I am going to do is with the first coin I am going to print 1. And then I would increase this row number with +1. Things look simple and fine. Now with the next loop I am going to print it as 2. So this would take as row 2. Let me run this one and see out my result. You don't see anything because we still haven't called our function. So let me call out my function first so we don't miss this point. Now let me run this one. Hey, you can see I got my result and I also printed these points here which was added in my loop. You can see I got my result and it's perfectly working fine and I don't have any issue. So this looks fine. Now this is row 1, row 2. Let me add more coins so this would be quite filled up. Let me close this one and add few more coins. And also I don't need this one. And also delete these 2 lines. Let me add 2 more coins to my portfolio. Before that, let me change my limit to some 300. The third coin I am going to add would be LTC, that is Litecoin, and then fourth would be XMR. This looks fine here. So what we have taken is we have changed this limit to 300, took 4 coins now, and also changed this range to 300. Let me run this one. You can see now we are able to create some sort of portfolio application which has data of 4 coins. Yeah, this looks fine and I can have some breathe. Don't miss out to call your function. This can change quite a bit result. I hope this looks fine. Now we have populated our result with our GUI application. The next thing we need to do is we just need to use better fonts. We just need to use better space. Also add a favicon here, that is my ICO file, and make it look better. So in the next lecture we'll be doing that and fixing all the current issues. So see you in the next one. Welcome back. Now let us start working on our portfolio app. The first thing I need to do is I just need to change this background color so it is quite visible. Our main focus at current point is to develop the app, and the next focus will be to make it more appealing. At currently I just want to get this done, so we will be able to use that and differentiate thing. So I would be using two basic color, one would be white and then gray, and font color would be black. So this is the basic editing I done. I just used alternative colors for gray and white, and the font is currently black. Don't worry, we are going to fix this part at later stage. Currently our focus should be to create the app. So let me run this one and see out my result. And I think this is sufficient to differentiate these column, and this looks fine. Now let me fill this up with our result. So we have 2 coins currently, BTC and then EOS. Let me add them up. So all I have to do is just go here. Now here at this point of time I am printing this result. What I need to do is I just need to add them with the help of our labels. So let me copy these label and just paste there. Now here instead of this text I need to pass out this particular result. So this would be the coin name, actual coin name. So that would be the Bitcoin, and the second will be the price. So I just need to fill out these. So what I need to do is I just need to copy out these result and paste them here. And I need to follow with all the steps. That's done. Let me comment out these. Okay, before talking anything else, let me run this one so we can see what result we are expecting. So if I run this one, you can see I got nothing. Why? Because I haven't called this function yet. So this is just inside this particular function and we haven't called it. The second problem we are going to face is that everything is on row 0. With the first loop, they are going to print this row 0 and column 0 as coin name. Then with row 0, column 1 as price. But whenever we are going to call this function, they are going to repeat the same. So this is going to create a conflict. So what I need to do is I just need to create an increased row number. So suppose if I run this application now. So at row 0 we want this heading. At row 1 I want my first coin. At row 2 I want my second coin. So I need to keep a track of row. So whatever the initial row would be, I just need to keep adding 1 with this particular row. So if I am going to print first coin, I just need to use the first row, second coin, then second row. That I have to follow because the 0th row is always going to be kept by this heading. But with our first, second, third and all the following row would be taken care with our coins. So what I need to do is I just need to add a new variable called row. I would call it as coin row and we will start it with 1 because 0th row is always going to be heading. So what I am going to do is I would take this first row and I would pass this first row for all my row fields. So now what is going to happen at this point of time? We started with this loop and our current row number is 1. So what I am going to do is with the first coin I am going to print 1. And then I would increase this row number with +1. Things look simple and fine. Now with the next loop I am going to print it as 2. So this would take as row 2. Let me run this one and see out my result. You don't see anything because we still haven't called our function. So let me call out my function first so we don't miss this point. Now let me run this one. Hey, you can see I got my result and I also printed these points here which was added in my loop. You can see I got my result and it's perfectly working fine and I don't have any issue. So this looks fine. Now this is row 1, row 2. Let me add more coins so this would be quite filled up. Let me close this one and add few more coins. And also I don't need this one. And also delete these 2 lines. Let me add 2 more coins to my portfolio. Before that, let me change my limit to some 300. The third coin I am going to add would be LTC, that is Litecoin, and then fourth would be XMR. This looks fine here. So what we have taken is we have changed this limit to 300, took 4 coins now, and also changed this range to 300. Let me run this one. You can see now we are able to create some sort of portfolio application which has data of 4 coins. Yeah, this looks fine and I can have some breathe. Don't miss out to call your function. This can change quite a bit result. I hope this looks fine. Now we have populated our result with our GUI application. The next thing we need to do is we just need to use better fonts. We just need to use better space. Also add a favicon here, that is my ICO file, and make it look better. So in the next lecture we'll be doing that and fixing all the current issues. So see you in the next one. Welcome back. Welcome to our big messed up codes. And I hope you are enjoying session. Now what we are going to do is, if I run my program currently, we are missing some sort of green and red with our portfolio, and that is quite important. What I am going to do is I am going to write a function, and if the value is positive, we are going to return font color as green, and if the value is negative, we are going to return font color as red. So this is one important thing. So let me close this one. I need to focus on this point, our font color, and currently it is black. So let me add a new function here. I would call it as font color. Remember, I need to take one value from that is amount, and now inside this particular function I need to take that amount, that is the value. Check if this particular value is greater than and equal to 0, then we are going to return as green, and if this particular value is less than 0, we are going to return as red. So all I have to do is use if amount is greater than equals to 0, return green, else return red. So this looks fine. Now I can use this particular function at any point of time. I can call it inside my font color. So here, instead of black, that is our current value, what I can do is I can use my font color function, and here I just need to pass out the amount. So if I pass my amount as this, and it is going to return green, I just need to remove my $sign and also convert this particular value into float. I just need to make sure that it is float and not string. So just add a float here. This looks fine to me. Let me run this one. Yeah, we got a result. So what I did is on our current value column, I used a function called font color, and this particular font color take the value, so take this particular value in float or int format, and then check with the help of our font color function that if this particular value is positive, it is going to return green, and if this is negative, it is going to return as red. So this FG would be green or red. This looks perfectly fine. Now I need to check in which field we need to add this. In current value, but this is not going to get into negative, so I need to remove here. I need to add into profit and loss because loss can be negative. I also need to add into profit and loss with total. So I just need to add in these two. Let me do that first. So all I have to do is just copy this one and paste here. And replace this current value with our profit and loss per coin and then total profit and loss. Close this one and run this program again. You can see that's fine. That's totally fine. Let me change out some values so I can see some sort of red. So let me close this one and change value here. Maybe point it as 48 and make it this one as 2.75. Run this one again. You can now see that there is some red, there is some green. And let me also change this one and make it as black for this. And now just change this one, copy paste the font color function and then copy paste my total profit and loss. This looks perfectly fine. Go to my program, let's cross this one and run this one again. Yeah, that works for me. So our current profit and loss is $881, which is fine because it is in green, that I can understand. Now that's all for this lecture. In the next lecture, let us talk about update button. So let us add that update button and understand how we are going to update after every 5 or 10 minutes whenever our API refresh. Now in this lecture, let me add an update button here. So what I need to do is that currently we have 4 rows, then 5th row. I need to add a 6th row, and then instead of label I would be using dot button, and with this button I also need to create a function. So whenever we are going to click on that particular button, we are going to call a particular function. So that particular function is my portfolio. So here we currently have total CV, total profit and loss. I also need to add a update button. So that would be a simple update. And here instead of label I need to use button. And the text would be update itself. We'll be deciding remaining thing at a later stage. And I just need to get a black color font. And here remember our row would be increased by 1. Yeah, this looks fine. This is our update button and it is doing nothing because I need to add an argument call command and I need to pass a function. Here I need to add a argument call command and I need to add a function which is my portfolio. So what I am going to do is I need to clear up this data which is currently in my API whenever I am going to click this update button and get new data. So whenever I am going to call this function, I am going to get new data in this API and this new data would run all over again in my function. So at the end of this function, what I am going to do is I am going to delete all my data. So before my update button, I am going to clear up my API. So if you look at here, what I am doing is I am filling all my data inside this API. And what I'm doing at a later stage, once this loop is completed, once all the values are printed, I'm going to empty this API. So whenever I'm going to call this update button, that is my portfolio function, it is going to call this request and fill my API with content, that is latest refresh content. And this would help us to refresh our data. Let me close this one and run this one again. So at currently our current profit and loss is 894.04. So if I try to click on update, it is not going to do anything because our API refresh every 5 minutes. So I have to wait for next 5 minutes to click on this button. What I can do is I can just fast forward these 5 minutes and then I would be clicking on this update button. Till then I cannot do anything because I have to wait for this. If I click on close, I would get a different result automatically with my next run. So I have to wait for 5 minutes and then click on update. Let me click this one and here you can see my result got updated. So that's how our update button is going to work. We are just using a simple logic that clearing up our API data and then calling up our function again. And this is going to work well. And if you want to show some creativity, just change the background color of update button and also change the font color. That would work better. So this is our current portfolio application with the help of Tkinter, and this works perfectly fine. This is one of the good basic project to test our understanding about Python, because we have used loops, we have used different arguments, clean up our APIs, create a small function for green and red, create some button and use Tkinter. So this is quite helpful. Now what I need to do is I need to create a .exe file. So at currently this is .py file. What I want to do is I want to create a .exe file so we can run this software in any computer. So in the next lecture, let us talk about PyInstaller and how to convert a .py file to .exe file. So see you in the next one. Welcome back. Now in this lecture, we are going to do something really interesting. We are going to create our first executable app, that is our exe file. So at currently our project is into .py file, and what we are going to do is we are going to create a .exe file with the help of a library called PyInstaller. So all we have to do is just visit your CMD or your terminal and call pip install PyInstaller. This is one of the important library that help us to create executable files. It might take few seconds or few minutes. Just download this library and then let us get started. Once your library is installed, let me create my main.py. So let me clear this one. So there are three methods and I will talk about all the three methods and will make you understand what is the difference. The first method to create a .py file into an executable file is just simply call PyInstaller and then the file name. Remember, you should be inside that particular folder in which .py file is present. So just call PyInstaller and then your file name, which is main.py. Remember, if you are calling this as main.py, your result, that is your exe executable file, will be as main.exe. So you need to take care of your file name. Let me focus on main.py currently, and you can change according to your requirement. And also at the background, let me open that particular folder so you should know what is going to happen at the background. Let me execute this one, and here you can see it is going to build. There are two folders. There are two new folders, that is build and there is dist. This process might take few minutes or few seconds according to your system. Let me come to my dist, and inside that I would have my main, and here I would have my exe file. This looks fine, and if I go back here, you can see there is also a build folder and with all these files. Remember, the difference that we are going to talk about different method is indexed file there are too many files. And what I want is I just want one exe file that contain everything. So if you see the size of exe file at this point of time, it is 1823 KB, which is approx 1.5 MB. But let me get all this data inside one exe file only. And also if you look here at a larger scale, there is by default icon. I want to change this item and use some custom icon. So it is 1.77 MB, and there are so many files regarding hash libraries, regarding socket, there is Kinter file and also select file. So I just want to render everything into one exe file. So for that we use the second method. So let me go back here and delete all these files. Now come back to my terminal. Here I would be using my second method. All you have to do is use your PyInstaller. Then you need to pass out the file name. Then you need to pass three arguments. One will be about one file, then no console, and then icon. So all you have to do is use dash dash, then one file, then no console, then again dash dash icon, and then you need to pass out the icon name. I would be using this particular favicon itself. So just use equals to and then the location of your icon. It's in currently same folder, just use favicon.ico. And don't forget to use correct spelling of PyInstaller. Let me run this one, and this might take few minutes again. And remember, this time we are going to have a single exe file inside our dist. So this is quite important. And why we are going to use this whole process is because if you want to pass this a software, if you want to pass this or if you want to upload this as a software, you are going to use one exe file. You are not going to use your .py file or some other files. So inside this exe file, your Python is compressed, all the libraries are compressed, all tkinter files, all the classes, method, everything is compressed. So if you want to run this particular program into your friend system, you don't have to install Python. All you have to do is create a exe file and just send him the software. He would directly run, and this particular exe file contains latest version of Python, kinter files and all other files. If you remember, if you recognize, whenever we install any software, it takes several minutes. It gives us warnings, it gives us terms and condition. This is all the process of installation of libraries, dependencies according to that software. So this is what we are doing. We are rendering everything inside one exe file. And this is our icon. Let me cut this one and paste it here. And if I run this one, we are using .exe file here. So this is our software. This is our GUI. This is our exe file. And this is our application that we have built. Oh, it's updated. This is something really cool that we have built from very basics and write each and every line of code ourselves. And if I close this one, remember you have to keep these both files together. So if you want to work this software, you have to keep these both files together. Otherwise it might give you an error, I guess, in the latest update, because they need favicon file along with this particular file. So you have to keep these two files together whenever you are trying to run. So that's all for this lecture. We have finally built our own exe file, executable file, and understand a lot more about Python. Basically, we understand a lot more about kinter also. So that's all for this lecture. I hope this lecture was helpful. I hope this session was helpful, and see you in the next one. Hey guys, welcome back. Now in this lecture, let us talk about databases. So we will be talking about MySQL as well as SQLite. I hope you might have heard about databases. So if you are into any development field, databases are really important. You know how important is data nowadays. We have to store data into certain rows and columns, and that's where database come into picture. So we have to talk about two things. The first one is about MySQL database and SQLite, and the second one is why we are using SQLite over some sheet, or why we are not storing data into Excel or maybe list, maybe dictionaries. So why we are using database. So to talk about first point, that is MySQL and SQLite. So MySQL is actually a full database which require to install certain files, set up a server, create some root user, set up a password, and there are a lot more things involved. So this is something like a proper relational database. Whereas if I talk about SQLite, you can see with the word lite, it's a minimum version database which can be used properly like MySQL, but it don't require to set up a server, and it don't require a username and password like a MySQL database does. So it's a light version of MySQL which do exactly what we want. The second thing is why we use a database, why we use SQL database or SQLite database, why we are not storing data in form of lists, dictionaries, or maybe in the form of Excel sheet or TXT. The main reason is that databases have data points. We can create different tables, like we can create different sheet in an Excel point, and also we can store everything in row and column format permanently. So if you run your program first time, you store some data, you might start working on that program, maybe after certain days that data would be stored in that particular database. So if I talk about Facebook as an application, it stores everything inside their database. You create your username, you keep your ID, you keep your password, you create your first name, last name, everything is stored in the form of table, rows and column. So they can store your information, and whenever you are going to visit Facebook, you can just extract that data with the help of certain variables and also certain fields. If I want to sum up what is database, so database is something, it's a collection of data which you keep in an organized manner. So you divide all the data in the form of tables, and in tables you divide them into rows and column. If I take an example maybe of a company, so companies usually use databases maybe for their employee, for their projects, for their future projects and for their past history. So for their employee projects, all these are tables. And if I talk about rows and columns, so for employer they might be name, first name, last name. So all these would be rows and columns of employee table. The second can be the projects. So they might have different type of projects that would be stored in project table in the form of rows and column. Third might be some attendance system, and there can be a lot more things. So that's how a database, tables and rows and columns are divided. If I talk about in general perspective what we are going to perform with database. So the first thing is to insert data in a database. Second thing is to fetch the data. So if we have inserted certain amount of data, we should know how to get that data back to display to our user. Third will be how to update that data. If we have stored a name and some salary, so we should know how to update that particular data. And the fourth one is how to delete data. So these are the 4 important commands that we should know and we should be familiar to work with any database. I hope this lecture was helpful. This is a brief starting for our SQLite database. In the next lecture, let us start working on our database, how to import our data, how to create connection, how to create database and all the other stuff. So see you in the next one and let's get started. Welcome back. Now let us get started with our SQLite. If I talk about SQLite, it's a lightweight database that can provide relational data management system with zero configuration, because we don't need to configure anything, we don't need to set up anything, we just need to import SQLite 3. It's already available with Python and we don't have to do anything. The second thing is, in general, SQLite is a serverless database that can be used within almost all programming languages, including Python. So serverless means there is no need to install any separate server to work with our SQLite. So you can connect them directly with the database. As I talked about earlier, MySQL requires some server setup. We need to set up username and password. Now the first step that we need to do is just directly import SQLite 3. Once you import your SQLite 3, you have to perform 3 tasks every time. So the first one will be to create a connection with your database. Second will be we need to create an object for cursor. And the third one will be to close all the connection. That will be at the end of the program. So that means you have to perform these 3 steps for every program in which you want to include SQLite 3. That is, you want to work with database. After creating cursor method, you can do anything that you want. That is your execution of update, insert and all the things that you are going to work with your data in tables. But after that, we need to close our connection. Without any delay, let us create our first connection with our database. So let me take a variable con and I need to use my SQLite 3, then dot, then connect, and then I need to give a database name. That's done. We have created our connection with our database. The second thing is to execute any SQLite statement, we need to create a cursor object. So you can create it with the help of cursor method. SQLite 3 cursor is a method of connection object. So to execute the SQLite 3 statement, a connection is established at first and then an object of cursor is created using the connection object. Once that is done, we can now execute all the queries, all the statement with our database. So before doing anything else, let me close these connection and run this file so I can create my database. Now let me run my main.py and see what result I am going to get. I haven't got any error and you can see I have my mycompany.db. So this is a database basically and it contained nothing, but my main motive was to make you understand about this. And if I open this file, you would see nothing. And we cannot use this DB and Atom. We have to use different software to actually view our database. At currently this looks fine. So I hope you understand about all the process and how we are going to execute, and all the queries, all the statement would be present here. So in the next lecture, let us start creating tables. Let us start doing some query work. I hope this lecture was helpful. See you in the next one. Welcome back. Now in this lecture, let us start working on our table. So to create a table, we need to use table query in the execute method. With the help of our cursor object, we just need to use execute method and just call out our table query. Suppose we need to create an employees table in which we are going to take ID, name, salary, department, position, and maybe few other fields. So all I have to do is just use this cursor object, and then we need to use execute method. And inside this, as a parameter, we need to pass create table query. Create table and then the table name, that is employees, and then I need to pass column name and then their data type. So I would be using ID as integer because each employee should have an ID, and I'm using a primary key. With this keyword, I am defining that this particular value is primary key. It cannot be duplicated and it would be unique for each and every individual entry. So that means ID would never repeat itself. Then second column I am adding as name, which is text, then salary as real, department as text, and then position as text. So if I talk about different data types, so there are null, integer, real, text, and blob. Null means there is no value. Integer we all know. Then real contains all the floating points. Text is basically string. And then blob is for data that need to be stored maybe in some form of images and everything else. So these are 5 types that I am currently using. So what I have done is basically with the help of cursor, I open a sheet and then I executed this program. Then I need to commit them. That means I need to save and modify my changes. So all I have to do is I need to use my connection object and then use commit. Remember, whenever we are going to modify anything in our database, we need to perform commit. So execute will be performed on object of cursor and commit would be performed on object of connection. I hope this is clear now, and at currently we have an empty database. Remember, we only perform create table once. That means if we have created a table, define all the rows, we are not going to perform this create table every time. What we are going to do is maybe we are going to add new fields in that particular table, maybe we are going to delete any field, maybe we are going to update any field, but we are not going to create table every time. It is created for the first time and it is going to remain same. These are just heading. The remaining data we are going to use insert, we are going to use update, we are going to use delete. But this creation of table is only once. So let me run this program. I hope you have saw a blink here, and if I need to check my database right now, you need to check out our DB browser for SQLite, and after that you can directly open your database file in that DB browser. Once that is downloaded, just open your DB browser for SQLite, and here you can see it's currently empty. All I have to do is just add my database. And you can see now I have a table, that is employee table. If I open this one, I have ID, name, salary, department, position, and I have also defined their fields. This looks fine. Let me browse data. It's currently empty. So there is nothing in my current fields. I have to insert data. So that's done. I hope now you understand about creating a table. In the next lecture, let us talk about creating data, updating data, and deleting data, and also fetching all the data from the database. Hope this lecture was helpful. See you in the next one. Welcome back. Now in this lecture, let us insert values in our database. So let me comment these. As I said, we only run create table once. Once our table is created, we just run values to insert and update, delete, and fetch data. So let me use my cursor object and then execute method and pass a query to insert in our employee table. What I need to pass with my query, it would be insert into, then my table name, then I need to use values, and then in tuple we need to pass all the value that I want. ID would be 1, then I need to pass my name, salary, my department and my position. Remember, there are few important things. Here I am taking them as capital just to make them readable. You can take them in small letter. That means SQL is not case sensitive language. So you can use them with lower caps as well as upper caps. I am using them upper caps just to make them readable. So these are all my values, and the upper caps are related to instruction from SQL. Same I followed here. All the values in uppercase was for SQL and all the values in lowercase are my dedicated name. So that's fine. Once that is done, I just need to pass out commit. So things looks fine, but remember, this is the worst case scenario. Don't worry, I would be talking about best case, but whenever we try to use this method is actually the worst case and it can be caught with SQL injection. We'll be talking about best case as well. But let me run this one so we can see how our values are added in our table. Let me run this one. I haven't got any error. Things looks fine. Let me open my database. We have one table and let me browse data here. Yeah, I got my data. So that's how things work, and even if I don't pass my ID, it would take auto increment. That means if I pass new data without ID, it would take it as 2. Then 3, then 4 and follow on. So this is the first method that we can use. The second method we can use is question mark as placeholder. So it would follow the same syntax. All I have to do is, instead of using and passing out my proper value, I just need to pass question mark here, and then I need to pass a second entity as tuple with all the values. Let me take these values from here and pass question mark as placeholder. So we have 5 values, that is ID, name, salary, department and position. And then all I have to do is, after this particular query, I need to pass second entity with all the values as tuple. So this looks fine. Let me use that as 2 and let me change few values and it's done. So this is our entity in the form of tuple, and remember, we need to take care of number of question marks. And this would map automatically with all the values. Now let me run this query also. We currently have one value already saved in our database, so if I am going to run this one, it would be saved as second value. Refresh this one. Yeah, we have 2 values now and this looks totally fine. I hope now you are able to understand how to insert value in our database. Important thing is, in real life project, we don't pass each value individually. We use everything in dynamic way. That is, we create a function for insert, we create a function for update, we create a function for delete, and then pass the values in that particular function. That value would be used here. So we will be doing that by the end of this course, don't worry. That's all for this lecture. We have inserted our value. In the next lecture, let us talk about how to update our table.